Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Suicide Squad Easter eggs video. There was about 10 minutes of the Joker that was cut out of the film, so I'm sure there's a bunch more Easter eggs in that we'll find out about when the DVD's released. But just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the movie yet. Not all these will be in chronological order, but I'll try to go from the start of the movie to the end of the movie. So one of the biggest ones early on is they basically describe the plot of Superman 2 when they're in the White House, and the guy says, what if another Kryptonian were to come down who doesn't share Superman's values and rip the roof of the White House off and grab the president? They're basically talking about Superman 2, where Zod and the other evil Kryptonians from the Phantom Zone rip the roof of the White House off and Lex Luthor just plants his butt in the president's chair. So that kind of lets you know that the movie does invoke a lot of deep cuts from all the DC movies as well as the comics, but most of the stuff that they do is from the comics. So like I said, sort of the macro arc of the movie is based on the Nightshade Odyssey, which is a Suicide Squad story from the Jim Ostrander years. It's all about the team discovering that Enchantress really isn't possessed by the Enchantress as they describe her in the movie. It turns out to be the Succubus, which is someone that's way worse and is connected to someone from the Nightshade realm, which is another dimension. So the Succubus has a brother named the Incubus that's trapped in the Nightshade realm that's trying to get back to our world. So like the big hulking other villain of the movie that doesn't speak a lot is called the Incubus in Suicide Squad. So they basically combined a couple different characters and that forms sort of the A story for Suicide Squad. Like they have to go to Midway City to stop this supernatural threat that's created by Enchantress, but it turns out she's possessed by something that's way worse that takes over her. So they did change a lot from that comic book storyline, but that's what they're invoking, the Nightshade Odyssey. So Enchantress, what about her? It seemed like the movie was trying to turn her into the villain. So while June Moon does resurface at the end of the movie, they leave it in a relatively ambiguous way. Now I feel like that's one of the failures of the movie, is it doesn't really let you know what the status of Enchantress is after this movie, because she's a huge comic book character. So I think to their benefit, future sequels could touch on that if they want to use the character again. Like they could say that Enchantress really isn't gone even though you think that she's gone. The thing that possessed her in this movie was something that was worse. So that's all behind the scenes storytelling stuff, but in the comics, Enchantress is never a bad character. It's really her being taken over by things that are much, much worse. Speaking of which, much, much worse, Amanda Waller, probably the true villain of the film. All the terrible things that happen in the movie are a direct result of the decisions that she makes. So a lot of the way she goes about recruiting the Suicide Squad and the chips that she uses to blow them up is straight out of the comics. Belle Reve debuted in 1987 in Suicide Squad #1. It served as kind of like a base for Task Force X, which is actually the true name of Suicide Squad. And you see, as Slipknot is so careful to help demonstrate, they get their heads blown off. Now they did it in the animated movie using the character KG Beast, but they actually, like the movie moment is directly ripped from a 1989 Suicide Squad comic. So Suicide Squad #9, Captain Boomerang tries to convince Slipknot to make a run for it. He does, boom, gets blown up by Rick Flag. They even did the Alex Ross cover of the Paul Dini Harley Quinn Batman story. So you literally see them in a montage make this pose as they're flashing back to the origin of Harley Quinn. Now, of course, they break the story of Harley Quinn, like how she became Harley Quinn, up through the movie in a series of flashbacks. You see her in Arkham Asylum, nice deep cut for the Batman comics. She's trying to treat the Joker, but ends up falling in love with him, has Stockholm Syndrome, helps him escape, and then he slowly turns her into the Harley Quinn that you know today. I'm not gonna hurt ya, I'm just gonna hurt ya real, real bad. So you also revisit a lot of Joker origin moments where he's like, would you die for me? Well, would you live for me? And then she just kind of throws herself off of the Ace Chemicals platform into the vat of chemicals. But as much as that's deep cuts for Harley Quinn's origin story, also deep cuts revisiting Joker origin moments from The Killing Joke. Now, The Killing Joke is an important comic book for a number of different reasons, especially Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, Batman-specific things. They don't reference a lot of Killing Joke Batman stuff in this. They don't reference Death in the Family, even though Batman is in the movie, who I'll talk about in a second. But they did say that they cut a lot of the Joker's scenes out of Suicide Squad, so the next time you see Harley Quinn and the Joker show up in a movie, they might dedicate more of the movie to telling their origin story, especially the Joker's origin story. But like I said, really this is about Harley Quinn's origin story, so you don't see a lot of Red Hood Joker origin story stuff happening. You could say the baseball bat is inspired by Arkham Knight, but the mallet that she picks up in that scene, where she's pulling her costume out of those boxes, was more of her primary weapon in the comics. I know everybody was hoping that Scott Eastwood was playing Nightwing. He's just playing a character called GQ, so people were like, maybe they're talking about Green Arrow or something like that. No, I think that he's just there because David Ayer really loves Clint Eastwood, and he wanted more, like human soldiers that were not part of the Suicide Squad to balance the team out, because he almost doesn't do anything in the film. Like, he nods a lot, he shoots his gun, and he fist bumps a little bit. That's really all he does in the film. But there is a lesser character when the Joker's trying to rescue Harley Quinn later in the film that's called Johnny Frost. He's the one that's operating that big machine gun when they think they're being rescued, and they're like, wait a minute, and the Joker's wearing his Alex Ross tuxedo and they open fire. The person firing the machine gun is named Johnny Frost. Johnny Frost is a character who works for the Joker in a book just called Joker. The way they introduce all the characters, like the way they explain their backstories in the movie, is very true to the comics. Like Katana, they talk about her husband dying, her stealing the sword from the man who killed her husband, the sword itself stealing the souls of the people that it kills. Better not let her kill you with that because it traps the souls of its victims. Moving into Batman stuff, there's a whole lot of Batman in this film. I love the way the film used him, but Deadshot gets taken in by him. That's how he ends up in Belle Reve. Deadshot's first appearance in the comics was in Batman number 59 way back in the 1950s. Now, the look of the character was very different. The Deadshot costume that most of you recognize from the comics, like the special hood that he wears, didn't debut till 1977 in Detective Comics number 474. So Deadshot showed up in this costume way back in the 1950s, then didn't come back till the 1970s. So if you wonder in this flashback when Will Smith is walking with his daughter, when they're telling the story of how he got arrested, why he's dressed like a pimp, it's because David Ayer is doing an homage to the Deadshot of the 1970s when he came back with his new costume. You'll of course remember the mid-credits scene where Batman is getting files to assemble the Justice League from Amanda Waller. She actually references nighttime activities, meaning, this is actually really important, that Amanda Waller knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and then Bruce Wayne kind of throws it back in her face as he's walking out, shut it down, or me and my friends will do it for you. He's telling Amanda Waller to shut down Task Force X, or he'll bring in the Justice League to shut them down, but he's saying, I like to make friends. So imagine this moment happening in the timeline before what happens during the Justice League trailer from Comic-Con, which I've already done a video for, so I'll put a link in the description for that. So after you watch the Suicide Squad Easter eggs, you can watch the Justice League video. But more Justice League stuff. So the Flash is in the movie, he captures Captain Boomerang. The reason they did it that way is just to have a little bit of fun, to invoke the larger DC movie universe. But Captain Boomerang originally first appeared in the Flash comics, so they're being very true to Captain Boomerang's origin story. The TV shows did the exact same thing. They used him for the crossover episode because Arrow kind of did Suicide Squad, and before that he'd been a Flash rogue, so he's the perfect character to use on both of those shows. But El Diablo, one of the best characters in the movie, El Diablo is one of the few characters that actually has a really satisfying arc. Later in the film, he says, I'm going to show you what I truly am, and he kind of changes form into this big demon figure. So El Diablo in the comics is actually possessed by a demon. That's where he gets his power from. But in the movie, he says that he was born that way, so you could say he was born part demon, but he's also a supernatural, magical character from the DC universe, the same way Enchantress is. So the movie kind of invoked magic in a way that the movies haven't done before. The last big Easter egg that I noticed was the John Ostrander one. So they named the building that they rescue Amanda Waller from in Midway City after John Ostrander. It's the John Ostrander Federal Building. John Ostrander, of course, is the person who made Suicide Squad famous. Now, the Suicide Squad was already an idea in the comics when John Ostrander came along. He's just the one that turned it into the modern Suicide Squad that everybody thinks about when they think about Suicide Squad. So if you guys spotted any other Easter eggs in the movie that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments. But I almost forgot, for those of you that are wondering, Zack Snyder did direct a scene during Suicide Squad. It was the Flash scene where he captures Captain Boomerang. So a bit of a DC Movies Easter egg. If you remember earlier this year, there was a bunch of reorganization behind the scenes. Jeff Johns became one of the new gods of DC. He's now kind of like the Kevin Feige of DC movies. So he really wasn't that involved with the making of Suicide Squad or Batman v Superman. The first Geoff Johns DC movie is actually Wonder Woman. So if you're a big Geoff Johns fan and you're really excited about what he's going to do with the DC movies now that he's in charge, you will see a lot of that on Wonder Woman. Like, Geoff Johns had nothing to do with the story of Batman v Superman or Suicide Squad. He was actually one of the co-writers of the Wonder Woman movie, so I think it's going to be fantastic. So in related news, if you guys didn't know, there's a new round of the giveaway. It's just a $20 Amazon gift card. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. My next video is going to be some Deadpool 2. They've just been talking about the Deadpool sequel. Then I'll do a new video later this weekend about the Suicide Squad sequels that I think they're going to make. It is already making a ton of money. There will definitely be more Suicide Squad. While you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here for the Justice League trailer, and you can click here for my review video. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.